Welcome to another edition of Unplug at 13 games in the can, 5 and 8, and remarkably, two of them incredibly similar to each other. We decided rather than necessarily reviewing Thursday night's match against the Bulldogs that we've just cut the tape from Easter Sunday and we're just going to play that again because it's the same game. Basically played out, apart from the start last time where we sort of jumped them a little bit, everything else about it was similar, and you could probably throw last year's game in as well. Where they killed us on a Thursday night early in the season. It's first time in a decade that we've been flogged by the same side 3 times in a row to that magnitude. So, not pretty. And I think the subject of our podcast last week was, have we learnt the lesson? And I guess the answer was no. I mean, the effort was okay early, nothing wrong with that, but certainly as it went along, I mean, they blew us out in the second quarter, then we rallied a little bit, and then, second half, largely uncompetitive, a few magnets thrown around a little bit. But, I mean, sometimes sides have your measure and the Bulldogs have our measure. There's no question about that. It's a bad matchup for us at present. But I don't believe, I know it's an easy thing to say. And Nick, as I welcome you back, it's actually the first time we've had the full band together for maybe a month or thereabouts. But maybe since that game, which wasn't all that long ago. But I don't think... It's easy to say that you shouldn't lose an AFL game by 12 goals, but you shouldn't. Anyone to anyone, really. I mean, something has to go wrong or fall apart in terms of your system to get flogged really by anybody. Even if they're the best side in the comp, clearly parts of your structure have to fall down. But to fall down the same way to the same side repeatedly is frustrating. I don't think anybody expects us to be better than the Bulldogs, and I didn't expect to win the game. But what I expected was that we would learn those lessons, dig in, make them earn it, and we really didn't do any of that.
No, where do you start? I think sometimes it's as simple as you have an adversary that just has your measure, like you said, and I think you look at every sport and there is countless examples. I mean, we're all cricket fans. We've spoken about cricket ad nauseum. Shane Warne had his bunnies, all of that sort of stuff. We are Phil Tufnell to the Western Bulldogs. Shane Warne. We're their bunnies at the moment. They're too quick. They're too skillful. They're too strong through the middle. I said to H off air before we started recording that we just don't have the leg speed or the power through the middle to run with them, and they're too quick, they're too skilled, they're too powerful, and they're not the best team in the competition by any stretch, but they've got they're not far off, but they're also there's probably a couple that have their measure, but there is they just have the combination, they have the mixture, they have the infrastructure that is built to trouble us, and we've had a couple of them over the last decade or so. We have broken a lot of those streaks, I guess, of teams. We did it a couple of weeks ago against Melbourne. But for whatever reason right now, the way the Bulldogs play and their list makeup, their squad, their talent is just overwhelming to us. And we don't have an answer to it. And I'm not sure, we can talk about selection. We can talk about playing the kids, and we can talk about a whole range of things. I don't think it would have mattered who ran out there on Thursday night. I think combination of physically and mentally, and they're in our heads and whatever, they just have our measure, and it's going to take something drastic changing for that to change. Aside from that, we're not good enough. Like, let's just lay that on the line. We're not good enough. We're not a top 4 team. We're not a top 8 team. And we're a fair distance from that right now. I think we still have the capability. I think our squad, our entire team, I think is better than what we've shown over the last 5 weeks. But for a number of reasons, some of which are of our own doing, some of them are out of our control. For a number of reasons, we're not showing that at the moment. And I think we're at the point where we're probably not going to show that for the rest of the season. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But look, we're not playing good footy. They're too good for us. It's about as simple as that.
Yeah, and look, I mean, not that we killed Geelong, but we've beaten them 4 times in a row at Marvel through pace, and we've opened them up and kicked like 6 or 7 in a row against them a few times. Um, so that's a similar example where you play a certain way that troubles the side. Now, Geelong are better than us, but we play a style that hurts them for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bulldogs clearly have our measure, and there's not much we can do about it. I mean, we've had that with Port Adelaide in the past, and not so much anymore because we either beat them or they beat us by a very small margin. So, yeah, there's elements of all of that. And H, I think in terms of us not being good enough, that's correct. But at the same time, I don't think we're necessarily anywhere we didn't expect to be. We haven't fallen off a cliff. I think we're at a level where we are a building side. I think they've been clear on that most of the way through the year. So a lot of people sort of saying, no, they've done me. I'm like, well, I don't know if you necessarily expected anything different.
Yeah, we've probably come back to about level to where we, as you say, expected to be. It's probably a couple of results that have one we should have won, one we shouldn't have won, sort of thing. That's like you probably would have swapped Geelong and West Coast as a results. You probably would have maybe switched a couple of others around and gone, yeah, okay, we're probably more likely to win that than this one, and it's probably fallen around about where we expected it to be. So, the writing on the wall was on the wall for the Bulldogs games, it seemed anyway. You saw them the week before against the Hawks. They came out sluggish after the bye and were half a step behind all night, and that they got that out of their system. Unfortunately, yeah, the worst result for us was them losing, then us having the bye and then having to come out on Thursday and come out against them wanting to prove that last week was, yeah, a bad week for them. And yeah, they hit us between the eyes and that was it. We were behind them all night, and that's just how, yeah, the whole thing panned out. And it looked like it from the outset. But as soon as it was started, it was like, yeah, we're half a step behind here, and just struggled to try to keep up all night and never really caught them. So I think it was we had a half decent second quarter, but for the rest of it, the rest of the night was pretty ordinary all up. And yeah, just copy paste last year, this year. It's just becoming a very repetitive story at the moment, and we need to, yeah, find out what it is what is the reason this is happening against them so badly. What do they do that we're not seeing? That there's clearly got to be a system that they're running that we haven't figured out exactly what it is. There's got to be a bit of a deep dive into that and actually discover what their secret is and how are they doing it so easily against us. Because, yeah, they did it with Darcy, without Darcy. So Darcy isn't the reason. They did it, I think, without Treloar last time as well. I don't think he played the first time either. He came back this time and played.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the complete structure because, yeah, they had exactly the same result. It was a 1 point difference between the two games, which just shows you it just almost exactly the same game. So let's find out what is that reason. What are we doing? Are we picking the wrong players against them? Are we picking positions wrong? Are we what is going on? Because I don't really want to be looking at the draw when it comes out in October and going, oh, we got the Bulldogs twice again. All right, there we go, 2 losses. Because that's the point where it's got to now. You're going, it would be almost a miracle to knock them off because it just doesn't feel like we're going to get close to them at all.
Yeah, those little half chances. I mean, obviously at the start, Sinclair, who doesn't normally missed the first 2 shots of the game. The first one in particular, he would normally kick. And then, late in the second quarter when we had a couple of individual efforts like Windhager's goal, and then he missed another one on the halftime siren, and little things like that might keep you in the game. It then got away from us, and, the heads dropped a little bit too easily. And I guess we'll talk about the balance between old and young, but I guess you hate if you get beaten like that and then you look at it and you're the 6th oldest team and all of that type of stuff. I mean, Ross spoke during the week or the last day or two about how it is a difficult mix where he's like, you want to win as many games as you can to sell yourself as a viable destination for other players to build that level of winning confidence and culture. But you also have to make decisions that'll help you be better long term, which we'll talk about soon enough with certain individuals and what the future means for them. But yeah, there are a couple. It was interesting. Like there are certain things that make you, even on nights like that where you get a little bit flat, that make you feel a little bit more passionate. Mine was in the last quarter because you mentioned Adam Treloar when he was very obvious what he said to Jack Sinclair when he glided past him. Now, Jack Sinclair didn't do anything. He just basically ran past him trying to intercept the ball and his shoulder sort of brushed across his cheek or something like that. And Treloar turned around and called him a see you next Tuesday or whatever it was. And then I got up, sort of was yelling at the TV thinking, nah, mate, you're a fucking idiot. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then I think Jack Steele went over to him and said words to that effect as well. But it's interesting that in a moment where you're feeling pretty flat, there's still that. I always describe that with St Kilda where we can sit here and have these conversations, but if somebody who didn't barrack for the club said that stuff, you'd be like, no, mate, right. Fuck off.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is the sort of the way it is. But yeah, it's I guess you put all of that in context, and we won't dwell too much on that game. We'll wrap with the votes. The votes were difficult. I thought we had 5 players that I would say played okay. So I'm giving them all 2 votes each, only because it was difficult to find a clear best player on the ground. I mean, Cal Wilkie was probably the closest we had to being, our standout player based on the job on Norton and the intercept marks. But it might be harsh on some others, but I thought there were 5 players that ticked the box, if you will. I gave 2 votes to Jack Sinclair in his 200th game. Didn't use it necessarily as well as normal, but solid enough. Nass, similar story, played well enough, butchered it a bit, but he was trying to make things happen and running the lines. He went forward and did a few things. 2 votes to Rowan Marshall, who I thought battled extremely competitively against Tim English. He's clearly not in career best form, but I thought he probably won that matchup overall, or at the very least broke even, but had one of his better games against the Bulldogs in recent times. I gave 2 votes to Jack Steele, 11 tackles, 23 possessions. I thought he worked really hard, again, under some degree of limitation. And 2 votes to Cal Wilkie, who did another more than serviceable job in defence. But I thought they were the 5 guys that could hold their heads up, and I gave them the votes evenly. Nick, how did you spread your 10?
I did something very similar. I found 5 blokes and gave them 2 each. I had Cal Wilkie as probably my 6th best player. I gave 2 each for essentially the same reasons as you. I gave 2 each to Marshall, Naz, Steele, Sinclair, and I gave votes to Windhager because I just thought when things were going against us, as they were for most of the night, Windhager at least showed a bit of drive. And, we've talked about it from Sinclair in the past. We've talked about it, Brad Hill in the past at times. We've talked about it with Jack Steele and a few other guys over the last, probably 5 or 6 years that there haven't been many guys when the tide is turning against us and we're being overrun, that we need someone to kind of push back. And I thought Windhager was one of the few on Thursday night that pushed back. And I thought that was impressive because we haven't seen a lot of that from him. And I feel like there's a few games this season where we've kind of seen what the baseline Marcus Windhager is. And I thought that he showed a lot of character in this one. So, yeah, I gave 2 to Windhager, and, yeah, just unfortunate for Cal Wilkie that he was number 6 behind those 5.
That's a massive oversight from me. That's how much I've repressed that game. Windhager was clearly in our best. So I'm going to give 2 to Windhager and then split Marshall and Steele to a vote each. So 2 Wilkie, 2 Windhager, 2 Sinclair, 2 Nass, split Steele and Marshall for the other. So had to get him in there. H, your 10?
Very similar. I'll start from the bottom though. I gave 1 to Marshall. He did a decent job against one of the better rucks in the league and just about level out the position over the night. 1 to Steele is not a huge game in the way of possessions, but the 11 tackles, there was 7 contested possessions, worked as hard as he could. One to Naz, probably would have been a 2 or 3 vote game, but again, it's just those clangers, the costly errors that he's just got a few sneaking in at the moment, and they, in tight games, could become issues and lose games through those. So he just needs to tidy those up a little bit. I don't know if it's just a bit of a rubbing off from how the game's going kind of thing, and trying to perhaps do a bit more than what he would normally do if the game was going all right, and just trying to force the issue a bit more than what he really needs to. 2 to Sinks, he started well. He disappeared a couple of times, but had really good patches throughout the game where he had a fair bit of impact for sustained periods of time. But for a 200th, had a good game. Would have liked to have obviously kicked one of those early ones, and hope it could have got us up and about a bit more than what we did. Nice early goal and get the crowd right up and going would have been quite good. 2 to Windhager, the job on Bontempelli. I mean, not many players keep Bontempelli to 14 touches. That's a great game, and he's got the big one this week that I'm assuming that he'll take. We'll talk about that later, obviously, but I guess the work he's got going at the moment, he's continuing to show why he's one of the better taggers in the game at the moment, because not only does he stop his opponent, but he goes back the other way, and he's been doing it week in, week out at the moment. So, it's great. And I thought Wilkie was clear best on ground, to be honest. He did as much as he could down back, and I don't know how bad it could have been if he hadn't played as well as he did. That would have been a 100 plus point loss easily. Just lack of, I guess, support down there. I mean, we've got some good players down there, and Kevin Eady's coming along and that, but the amount of ball that came in, he just could not. You can't take that when basically you're the number one defender and you're an undersized defender, and the playing against Darcy, it's almost an impossible thing. There's people talking about his reach when he jumps. It's touching 4 meter in the air, and you just think about that and you go, that's just ridiculous. There is no defender anywhere who's going to stop that. And to be doing that whilst trying to look after Norton, whilst trying to look after some small forwards, whilst trying to marshal our players, it's a tough job down there, and it could have been a whole lot uglier if he didn't do as much as he did.
Yeah, the point on Darcy is a valid one. I mean, you look at, he looked like he did an ACL against us in the Easter Sunday clash, misses 8 weeks, and not to labour the point, but Max King touch and go for round 1 with a knee injury that nobody can identify, and he misses the entire season. And their key forward tears is a new one. Whilst ours is in the grandstand. I know that's the bane of frustration for most of us. But looking
can I just say on Sam Darcy, Sam Darcy's a very, very good player, and he's got the ability to be a great player. He's already a superstar, and he's on that trajectory for sure. But the wankfest and the TV commentary is a little bit much. Like, yes, he's incredibly tall, and he's agile, and he's strong, and he's a beautiful kick, and all these things. I get it. He's a great player. I love watching him play, and I'm super glad that he didn't do his ACL against us 8 weeks ago, and that it wasn't a serious injury, and that we get to keep watching him. But the commentary about the unicorn and the greatest player, he's not the greatest player of all time. He's very good. He's a young kid. He's got the ability to be very good in the future, potentially great. But let's just settle down a little bit and just watch some footy, potentially.
Yeah, that's right. He's not the best player in the AFL now. He might be soon, but he's not right now. Who knows? We might come up against that this week. His teammate who Windhager tagged might be. There's a few others that are in the frame. for that conversation. H keeping the ball rolling with the other awards. So could you find a Jason Blake this week?
Pretty tough, but I was looking probably towards. I know. I was almost looking at players I gave votes to. That was almost where I was looking, because I was looking back through the list again. I gave it to Keeler last week because I thought he was still going on. He went okay last week, but wasn't at probably the same level. He obviously got lost like a lot of other guys did during the game, and but for keeping on. Yeah, I had to almost just jump onto Kel Wilkie's work. It's not getting. I think I saw him in a few of the votes in like certain in papers and things like that. But yeah, the work he had to do down there in the game, it probably wasn't given as much credit as what it probably deserved. The Windhager job on Bontempelli was obviously recognised quite well and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I think Welkie probably could have got a bit more credits for what he did. And yeah, stopped at being probably a 100 plus point margin. So I just want to throw him up to say, yeah, I think it deserved a little bit more than what he actually got.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout when it's sort of hard to pinpoint. Nick, did you have a standout amongst the Jason Blakes?
Yeah, tough one to find from our game. And a couple of times throughout the course of the year, particularly UH, I think you've kind of thrown the Shannon Knoll at the next group of players playing at Sandy. And we know that Sandy aren't much chop either, but I thought that next group, the young kids, Boxall, Wilson, Garcia, etc., did put their hand up, and that's what we need them to do at that level. I don't think anyone's expecting much out of Sandy in the short to medium term at all, but I think it was promising that those kids put their hand up. Wilson, with the ball, without the ball, his efforts, defensive efforts, his contested ball efforts. Hugh Boxall just doing what he does: see ball, get ball, chase, tackle. Same with Garcia. I thought was impressive in a group that is really struggling. And so wanted to, I guess, credit where it's due, because we've been asking for it all year, that next group of players, whether they're young or old or whatever, need to be putting their hands up at the next level. And they did that. And that's about all you can ask for them at the VFL level.
Yeah, I think that's a very good shout, and we'll talk about some of those guys in a second. But look, I know he doesn't dominate, but I thought at least he had a dip, and that was Burns. I thought his hard running was a feature. I know he doesn't tackle as much as some of his teammates, but he wasn't our worst player over the course of the game. So I was able to squeeze him in for this particular award. But Nick, we're sort of floating a little bit of, this is the Shannon Knoll Award, but it's probably also reaching that stage of the season where, it's time to have conversations about certain individuals, and I think they're going to pop up through these. But who's your Shannon Knoll?
Yeah, well, the Shannon Knoll goes, I guess, to the coaching group off the back of my Jason Blake for playing the older blokes. I mean, we've seen time and time again over the last, let's say, 2 months, 6 weeks, that it's time to play the kids. I think I probably went too early. I think it was about round 5 or round 6 where I said it's time to play the kids. And I think that there's been flashes. Zach Jones has shown flashes. He plays a good game, plays a couple of good games here and there. Brad Hill has shown flashes. Warriors of our club and have battled through a period that has been relatively unsuccessful, for the most part anyway. But we now need to see what these kids can do, and we just need to give them a sustained run at playing senior footy. And it might be time. I mean, I'm not saying that Brad Hill's done by any stretch. I think that he's probably still got some good footy left in him. But right now, I'm not sure what the benefit of playing Brad Hill is over playing Darcy Wilson. I'm not sure what the benefit of playing Zach Jones is over playing Hugh Boxall. And I get the argument, you touched on it at the top. Parko from Ross about the balance of trying to win games and make St Kilda, make our footy club a destination for free agents and whatever. I'm not sure this is helping. I'm not sure seeing us play the way that we have played for the most part of the last 4 or 5 weeks is of any benefit or of any advantage in terms of trying to get a Tom de Koning to want to come and play here, or a Zach Butters, or whoever it is, a Harley Reid. Those guys aren't going to look at our team and say, "Oh, Zach Jones is playing in the middle, and they're he's played a good game this month," or Brad Hill won a couple of uncontested ball on the wing last week, and then butchered it inside 50. I just don't know how that's of any benefit when you're having this conversation. And so I guess my Shannon Knoll and my it's time to talk about those guys. And I don't mean to be having a crack at Jones and Hill, but they are the examples, I guess, of experienced players who are closer to the end of their careers than the start, who are probably holding out players in the same position, who we might be able to learn a little bit more about right now.
And Butler's another one. I know he played well the week before against Melbourne, but same conversation. And yeah, I mean, as you say, if you were looking at joining St Kilda, you would sit there and the reasons you would join them would be because, I like Wilson and Filippo and Taru and Travalia and Garcia and Boxall, and I can see something and I really want to grow with them. But going, Zach Jones had 21 possessions this week, but we know he won't be playing there next year. What do I even learn from that? They lost by 8 points when they, might have lost by 4 goals if he didn't play or whatever it may be. Yeah, I think those guys are victims of the circumstance. They're not, you don't blame them for it.
Correct.
But it's the
and it's
way
also
that,
like, what's the difference when you're trying to sell this club? Is finishing 13th that much more enticing than finishing 14th? Like, I just don't see the benefit at this stage anymore.
Yeah, and I'm all for, I still think you're trying to win games. I don't think if it would be a harder conversation if Zach Jones was getting 30 a week or Brad Hill was getting 30 a week or Butler was kicking 3 a week, but they're not. Zach Jones had 7 possessions on the weekend. Boxall and Garcia would have had 7 possessions. You know what I mean? And that advances you because, they're learning what it's like to play against Liberatore and Bontempelli and whatever else and figure out how to work through all of that. It's not as if we picked Wilson next week instead of Butler, we would automatically be worse off. We wouldn't. We'd actually be more likely to win the game probably. I think it's a very easy decision because the senior players that are in the side aren't advancing our cause. If they were, it would be tougher. But, H, who's your Shannon Knoll?
Yeah, just to finish it off, if we are looking to get in to Koning and anyone else, it's the future we have to sell to them, not the players who are finishing up a year or two after they come to us or that sort of thing. So we've got to show them what's ahead. And at the moment, you're saying a few of those players, they have to go watch Sandy to see it, and that doesn't give you a full idea of what these players are capable of. So,
and that future is exciting. Like that future is actually when you look at that list, you rattled off a bunch of those names, Darren. Those names are good players, and they're going to be good players, and they're exciting. And they are, like you said, H. They are the reason that if you go to Harley Reid and say, in 2 years, look at the development of a Filippo and a Mitch Owens and a Marcus Windhager and a Darcy Wilson and hopefully Desire Wanganeen-Milera and a Hugh Boxall getting 25 in the middle and Garcia 12 tackles and all these sorts of things, not to mention a bloke called Max King potentially getting right in the goal square or whatever. Like that's the exciting part, not look at where this team is right now because that's not exciting. It just isn't. It's not exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can sell that future by playing them. So that's easy as it is. You can get them out there and we're not expecting results when they're all out there. So yeah, we just want to see and we want to have an experience. So yeah, that'd be a good thing to do. But one guy that should be there and will be a leader of those players in time to come, you'd expect. He's obviously started the season off well and has been probably almost one of our measuring sticks for the season so far, but yeah, 2 goals in 3 weeks now for Jack Higgins. He's dropped off a bit. It's starting to show up there. It's leaving quite a hole. And like he's dominated that position all year up until the Gold Coast game, and it's just gone a little bit missing. There's obviously teams putting a bit of work into him. It's now up to him to go, all right, I've got to change what I'm doing a little bit. Go and find another way to beat these backlines. So he just needs to put that bit of work in, and hopefully can find that 2 to 3 a week again that he was getting up until the round, I think it was 10 or whatever it was, and keep his average above that 2 a game and to keep it there for the first time in his career. He's teetering on the edge of dropping below the 2, and hopefully, keeps it up to 2.5, and manages to keep himself in that AA consideration.
And mine's probably, it's not for the individual, but I think they could make a statement of sorts this week and lift our spirits with a debutant. I think it's likely, but I don't like the conversations around, would you debut someone against Collingwood? It's like, why not? They're human. Like, what are they? Are they bigger? And, they might be better than some sides you're going to play against, but in terms of the role he's going to play, it's not like, you throw him in there and someone will kick 10 on him or anything like that. It's Collingwood, if they beat us, it's system and all of that type of stuff. You're not throwing him to the wolves per se. It's it's a game in Melbourne, big game against, a big club, and I think that also sends a statement that this kid's taken 8 intercept marks in a game where they got belted. He's jumping over people's heads, like he's 100% ready to go. Now you've obviously got to temper that expectation. He's not going to walk out there and dominate games, but he's very comfortable reading the play. He's got enormous upside. Would have played a month ago if not for that suspension.
Yeah.
I think that really does send a message. And with a couple of those other guys coming in, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing, we'll talk about it in a minute, but out Butler, out Jones, out Carroll, in Philippou, Taru and Wilson or something like that.
I mean, not to mention, Collingwood have 2 of the best intercept markers in the comp that someone like a Taru could get a good look at in Jeremy Howe and Darcy Moore and those type of guys that, that's the type of player that he's aspiring to be like, I guess. So why not throw him in?
Yeah, and I mean, Collingwood might not bring back DeGoey this week because they wouldn't want to have him play in front of or behind Taru, who might jump over his head a few times. So that'll be an interesting one to sort of see how it plays out. But yeah, I'd like to see that type of thing at the selection table. And Darcy Wilson's clearly, I know he's had his knockers this year, which I think has been a little bit harsh. He's a running machine. He creates space. And I know he put his hand up like Philippou did last year to go back to Sandy and find some form, and he's done that. He's at 32. You've done your apprenticeship, son. Get him back in there. I think he'd be ready to go on that front. Would you look ahead to that game against Collingwood? I've just rattled off my changes. H, what would you do? I've gone out Carroll, Butler, Jones, in Wilson, Philippou, Taru.
I think your other one to look at is Garcia as well. He's got that mongrel about him that would be nice to have in there. So he's got to get back at some stage this year. So we've got to work out what the formula is. Do we just go bang and bring them all in, or do we just introduce one by one or 2 at a time, just to get that changeover sort of happening? And it probably is a bit of an issue going too hard too quick. I think a little bit too much change can unsettle any structure you got in a team, that sort of thing. So it'd be probably doing a couple at a time, and they just say, your Jones is probably one of the first ones to go. He's had probably every month he's had probably a really good game, but the other ones are the things that are letting him down, and not that we expected him to be a world beater every week, but yeah, we can't afford to have like a great performance once a month at the moment. So, it's time, yeah, as you're saying, to move them on. Travalia, who else was the younger guys that were in there this week? I mean, Clark back obviously as well. He's hopefully getting more game time. Stocker's back. That's good. He's in that mix. He's sort of bit older, but yeah, it's the kind of players you want in there to look ahead for this 2, 3, 4 year ahead sort of thing. So, those would be the names, as you were saying before. That would be about the mix, you hope. But yeah, it's going to be, I guess, a case of, do we even look further? And I don't know. I keep hearing people going on about, like, are we ever going to play Max Heath up forward? Is he ever going to be in consideration? I wonder. It's just one to give him a go at one point and say, this is your chance.
Yeah,
that's that. You're either going to take it or you're not going to take it, and then we'll know. Because I think there's a couple of players in that group that we've got to say, you've got one chance to prove yourself and see if you've got something or not. And I mean, you can sit there in the VFL and kick 5 goals or whatever, or take 15 marks in centre half forward and that. But yeah, to actually come and do it in the seniors, then yeah, it's a very different thing. But it'd be probably an idea to have a couple of those maybe popping up towards the end of the year as well. Probably not the week to do it this week, but yeah, at some stage there will be to do it. But yeah, those couple you've rattled off earlier, that's probably at the extent. But I'd probably go, yeah, as you're saying, maybe 2, possibly a third change, but I wouldn't go many more than that.
Yeah, I'd probably do all of that. I probably wouldn't quite do Heath just yet, although I do think that he needs to run at some stage just to see what he's got. But I think the others have earned their spot. I mean, Taru aside, because he hasn't been playing because he was suspended, but he had before that. The one that I'd change from your list, Parko, is I'd probably take Burns out and keep Jack Carroll in. I want to see what we've got with Carroll, and I thought that he's shown flashes. I know he can be a decent runner. He's got decent skills. He's got some strength, and I think that he can. I think that he can be a player, and I think we need to see him against senior AFL players consistently. I think we kind of know what Ryan Burns can do, and I think that we know that he's a valuable piece of a squad. If he's our 36th, 35th best player, then we're probably doing okay. It's when Ryan Burns is our 22nd, 23rd best player that we might be in a spot of bother. And I'm confident, like I'd be happy to keep Ryan Burns on our list for longer. But I think that Jack Carroll potentially has a higher ceiling than Ryan Burns, and if we're starting to go down that path, then that's what I'd be doing. Probably Hill out for Wilson, Jones out for Boxall, Tauru in, Garcia, like you said, H is probably one of the other ones. Whether it's Butler or whatever, I don't know, but I think in my opinion, that's the direction that we have to go as a footy club over the next 6 or so weeks.
I also don't believe. I think that's spot on, but I don't think Ross will ever drop Brad Hill. I think he's more likely to pick me than drop Brad Hill.
I also don't think that he's going to drop 5 blokes at once. Like, he just doesn't seem to do that.
And look, Hill has some importance, as we know, a lot of importance in terms of off-field and team and that type of thing, which complicates things a little bit, given some of the other stuff happening. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean,
he's also still contracted for another year, so I'm not sure anyone's kind of saying cut Brad Hill, like delist him. And maybe that's a conversation that you have to have in 10 weeks, but I'm not sure anyone's at that point right now. But he's clearly not in great form, and I think if you've got kids that are showing a bit at the next level who are in form, Ross said in his presser he's been selecting the older blokes because they've earned it. Rewarding performances at Sandringham level, at VFL level. Well, the kids are doing that now, and the senior blokes aren't doing it at senior level. So, do what you say you're doing and reward the kids. And if you have to drop some senior blokes, then do it.
Yeah, and don't get beaten the way change it up a little bit. And look, I wasn't hugely confident against the Dogs, and clearly Collingwood are the benchmark side, but they don't hold the wood on us like the Dogs do. Like, I would anticipate they would beat us, but I'm not sure they'll pulverise us. I mean, they don't belt sides. They generally extremely well drilled, probably the best side in the comp, I would say.
I think they work teams over. They're really well balanced. They work really hard. They don't really have too many weaknesses. The Bulldogs' strengths are our weaknesses, and I think that's why they demolish us. I don't think the Magpies have the same strengths as the Bulldogs.
So
and I think that we potentially match up on them better.
Yeah, that's right. So you could see us being competitive in the game,
yeah.
but what that means or what that looks like, we'll find out. It's their home game, but at Marvel. So
there's a few of their fans a bit concerned about this game coming off the bye. I mean, you sort of look at them and go, what are you concerned about, to be honest? But they're a little bit like
6 at quarter time when they're flat and we don't put them away.
They're all a bit like, oh, look, we're so old, we've had the week off, we're going to come out slow, we're going to do that. And you go, well, unless we put 15 goals on you in the first quarter, I don't think we're going to be too confident. It's a bit of a bit of one where you go, it's a good thing, I think, our way that they are coming off the bye. But they're that good that you'd think they overcome that kind of thing. I mean, as I was saying, the Bulldogs look sluggish against Hawks. We look sluggish this week. Hopefully the domino effect there is, they are a bit sluggish, and we've got that game under our belt now. And I mean, we've had a 9-day break, so it's not we're not backing up straight away when you look at it too. So it's a bit of a one that you think, look, we got maybe a little bit of advantage there at our home game. In the St Kilda prime time, I guess you could call it, the Saturday Night Marvel. Go out there and think of all that sound noise for us. That's the best way to probably tell the players that all the cheering's for you.
I guess the last couple of things that we spoke about the season going about as you would expect. The frustrating thing has probably been a few guys that you wanted to see as part of the system develop. So Max King, clearly one of those. Liam Henry, another one of those. Probably a similar story around the management of his knee and recovery. And then obviously Filippo only playing, say, 3 or 4 games. You think that he's a key part of that. I would have loved to have seen those 3 play together a dozen times this year in terms of what we're looking to do. Max King, you would think, will certainly not play this year. The club has alluded to that, which means that round 1 next year, if he's available, will be 620 days since he last played, which is a significant amount of time. I mean, I referenced Charlie Curnow. He hardly played for 2 years, and there was talk about him potentially being finished, and he came in and won back-to-back Coleman medals. So, not pressing the panic button on Max yet, but they've got to figure out what the problem is. I mean, he doesn't have any structural issues or an obvious injury, but it grabs or something when he pushes to maximum level. I don't know, but it's clearly frustrating. It would be more frustrating for Max than anyone else, but unbelievably annoying. I guess
basically say go in and just do anything you have to right now and just.
That's it. Yeah,
figure out what it is, and it's
go to Germany and see
something we should have done.
The pig's blood and whatever you got to do. Yeah,
something we should have done probably at the start of the year when it became issues, and just knowing that look, a quick fix isn't going to do it by the looks of it. So just do whatever has to be done to get him back out there and be feeling good. Like, we don't need him just being off the knee for a little bit and coming back in pre-season and getting back to round 1 and going, it's feeling a little bit sore. Let's not have that again. Let's get it right and get him back out there 100%.
We just transplant. Was it Darren Creswell, the Swans player, who punched his kneecap back in? Can you just, transplant Creswell's knee into King's leg and hopefully we're all good?
Yeah, it's crazy, but
it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah, that was one of the bits of news. And I think, the Liam Henry's the other elephant in the room as to how was he available to play in that last Bulldogs game, and he still doesn't look like he's match fit now. What was going on there? Is any of that his own fault in terms of prep? I don't know. We'll see. But the Tom De Koning one, I guess as a final thought, there was chat from Tom Morris that he's telling Carlton that he wants to stay, and he's ringing the CEO and asking how they can get it done. I'm almost tempted in that position, Nick, from our point of view, to cautiously walk away. Now, I know he's an important part of what we're trying to build, but the concern I would have is that it's obvious by what he's saying to Carlton that if he was to leave, it would be only for cash, and that's fair enough. It's a massive contract. But if he walks into the door at St Kilda and says, don't really want to be here, I wanted to be there, but I'm only here because I'm getting paid more than all of you on the list, I wonder what that does to the group. And if, hopefully not, but if we lost Nash, would there be a degree of resentment in the group thinking, why did we give the cash to you and lose this bloke who's a gun? I don't know culturally whether it's a good idea to go chip sit on somebody that's not totally invested, because you would simply be buying him, really.
That's right. And I had only just, let's say in the last 3 or 4 weeks, kind of talked myself into Tom De Koning as being, a wanted target. Like, clearly we want him, and clearly we have our reasons. He's not the player or the type of player that I think we as a club should prioritise, but he's clearly a very good player. And I think we're at the point where we'll take good players, doesn't matter what position they play in. And so, I'd love to have a fully fit, raring to go Tom De Koning line up in red, white and black in round 1 next year. But you're right. I mean, that's a scary thought. It's a scary thought that he walks in Moorabbin, in November and is like, well, I would have preferred to stay there, but you guys offered me so much money I couldn't say no.
And Marshall would be good too, probably.
Yeah, and that you then, like, what does he have to do then to get himself up each week and to play good footy? Even outside of the rest of the squad morale and that conversation that you've mentioned, Darren, which is completely valid as well. But you've given the bloke everything he wants, except to play with his mates. Like, it's not a great situation to be in. I think it's getting to that point where there is so much smoke, and the saying, where there's smoke, there's fire, and it's a saying for a reason. It's a phrase that exists for a reason, because quite often it's true. That I would be ready to have that conversation with De Koning's management, that we're at the point now of having to walk away, because we can't risk destabilizing the rest of the squad, the rest of our team that we're trying to build for 5, 6, 10 years of, competitiveness over one bloke who doesn't want to be here. I 100% agree that we have to start having that conversation about walking away at this point.
Do we wait a couple of months for Carlton to up the offer, then walk away, so it, without being mean to Carlton, it hits their salary cap a little bit?
Well, I think that's part of the plan anyway. When that sort of offer gets thrown around, it's to try to jolt other teams into action to start spending up on what they've already got. So I feel like we've done that with a lot of these other players that we've been apparently into, and then they start signing big contracts, and it feels like that we're one of the more proactive teams in the way of trying to make other teams either commit to someone or see how serious they are about them, or it seems to be part of the play. So we've seen the couple of players already this season. I mean, apparently we threw this 1.7 at Callahan first, and then he signed, and then Davies Uniacke, and then he signed, and it's is it just been along the same lines of, here's a few players that we know are out of contract, let's throw a big number at them and see if they're serious. Like, yeah, it's just because the number is 1.7 now doesn't mean that's what he signs for if we get him. That it could still be less than that anyway. Carlton might only go, we can only afford 900, and our final offer comes in at 1.3 or 1.2 or something like that. It's there's a chance that he doesn't even end up with 1.7. So it's not a final thing, because obviously the rules are they actually can't sign anything or do that sort of thing during the season anyway. So a lot of these numbers are quite very much hearsay. So it's interesting to see if it does happen, and if he does go, all right, no, I'm going to stay as well, that whether he signs on a big deal and then another name comes up. We're reading just before that sounds like Rao wants to stay in Queensland now. So he's a name that I didn't see us as a big opportunity of getting him, but yeah, there was but basically if we have put a target on his head as well, they've got to pay a bit more to keep him up there, and that's what loosens other players. The other players then have to have money found for them, and that's where they drop out. So it's probably been a few opportunities over the years where we may have targeted one player in the hope of trying to get another player that was behind them or something like that. It was like, I think we've going back years and years ago, I think we had a play at Dean Cox in the hope of actually getting Michael Gardner, and that's what ended up happening. So, I mean, we probably would have taken Cox. We had a couple of, I think, goes at him over the years. Eventually we went, look, Gardner's one we want. We'll throw the house at Cox, and
well, I think we wanted Cox. I think we wanted Cox.
Oh, we would have taken him if, absolutely would have taken him if the opportunity, they went, oh yeah, you can, we're not going to pay for him, but it moved the pieces around, and Gardner falls out the back, and we get him a lot cheaper than what we would have probably otherwise. So it's just that shuffling other teams around by making them change their contracts or making them pay more. It becomes a big moving point on a lot of them. So the plays we make aren't necessarily the ones that we're completely aiming for, but yeah, if that one is the one that pays off, then yeah, you've got, I guess, the big fish in the end.
Yeah, it's I guess it becomes that watch this space as we build towards that part of the season. But Pies, on a Saturday night, we keep marching on. Hopefully some good and promising news at the selection table, but still plenty more to come over the course of the season with plenty of special guests as well. Go Saints.